Good afternoon, everyone. We just concluded our roundtable on hate crimes with Attorney General Rob Bonta. This roundtable has been a foundational step in the right direction and an example of the community coming together for the betterment of our city. Stockton is the most diverse city in our nation, and we must celebrate our differences and commonalities without fear of discrimination or hate. Today, we spent focused time engaging community leaders, stakeholders, and members on hate crime concerns, responses, and prevention strategies. And we must move forward and do whatever it takes to protect our city from acts of discrimination, bigotry, and hate. Our community cares about one another, and we must feel comfortable to ensure that we have a safe community, that we can operate and move in this community without fear. I'm grateful for each member of our community represented here today, and each one represents a part of our city and is deeply invested in the safety and wellness of Stockton. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to Attorney General Rob Bonta.
Thank you, Mayor Lincoln, for your partnership and your leadership, and I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be in Stockton today yet again. I've been here many times in the past and will come again, and I'm thankful for the community of leaders here on full display, both in our roundtable and standing here at the podium. This is, my visit to Stockton is my 9th visit to big cities across the state of California to work in community with leaders to identify solutions to the growing challenge of hate and the rise of hate that we are unfortunately experiencing throughout the state of California. This morning, my office released our annual report detailing hate crime in California, and the picture it paints, what we discovered, what we've learned, is very chilling. We have seen hate crimes rise yet again, a rise over the year before, which was a rise in hate crimes. We have seen that between 2020 and 2021, hate crimes increased by over 32% overall. The hate crimes against the African American community remain the most prevalent. The hate crimes against AAPI community, it was up 107% in 2020. It's up another 177% in 2021. So what we saw in 2020 has remained with us and continued to grow, and the hate looks like a lot of different things. And in the last 2 months alone, we've seen within our own state a drag queen storytelling hour interrupted by violent extremists. We saw a family's home spray painted with anti-Asian graffiti. We saw a predominantly Taiwanese congregation attacked and shot while worshiping. So there is no denying it. In 2020, we saw a crisis of hate emerge, and we remain in that crisis situation. Here in Stockton, local authorities reported 23 hate crime events last year, and that's why today's conversation was so vital. Our community voices are critical. They're critical components in understanding the crisis and charting a path forward. And the testimonies that we heard, the experiences that were shared, they were personal, they were powerful, and they were painful. But they also brought us one step closer to the progress that we need in our communities. We have to confront the realities of hate if we're going to overcome them. And I'm going to continue working with communities like Stockton to help lead the charge at the state level to advance this mission against the forces of hate. That's why we've taken numerous steps at the California Department of Justice. I've established the Racial Justice Bureau to call out injustice throughout the state of California in all its forms, including in the form of hate crimes and hate incidents, as well as bullying. I've issued guidance and resources to assist public law enforcement and prosecutors address hate crimes. We've encouraged district attorneys' offices to have hate crime units when they don't, to work with impacted communities in that regard, to provide robust victim services to help those who are victims heal. We've also worked with law enforcement to better identify and investigate hate crimes as such. We learned that many hate crimes were actually never identified as hate crimes. That's something that can be very painful for the individual and a community, because a hate crime is not just an attack on an individual, it's an attack on an entire community. We've also launched CARE, Community Awareness, Response, and Engagement. It's our group of leaders in the DOJ who go out to communities proactively to sit with, learn from, listen to, and co-create solutions with community members throughout the state. And just earlier today, we announced the creation of a new statewide hate crime coordinator. So I just want everyone to know, while I'm here in Stockton, as the California Attorney General, as the leader of the largest state Department of Justice in the nation, as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer here in California, there is no place for hate in Stockton, in California, or anywhere. Not now, not ever. We're going to do everything in our power to push back against the forces of hate. We know that hate is not new in California or in the United States. It's been with us from time immemorial, but neither is people rising up to address hate and overcome it and come together to respond with real solutions. So across our many differences here, we are united in addressing hate crimes and hate incidents and overcoming hate. We're united in making sure that our neighborhoods and cities are safe and healthy and prosperous for all, because we know that nothing is more important. So together, through the conversations that we're having here and throughout California, we're going to continue to address bias and hate at its roots and strengthen our response to hate crimes statewide. Thank you all for joining us today. Let me now take the opportunity to introduce our next speaker, Simone Reyes, Executive Director of San Joaquin Pride Center.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Attorney General Bonta. I just wanted to say a few words. First, I wanted to say thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Thank you to Attorney General Bonta, City of Stockton, for providing this space for us to continue the conversation on hate crimes. It is no secret that the LGBT community is a constant victim of hate crimes. Specifically, trans women of color, such as myself, are at a higher risk of facing hate crimes and just hate speech in general. So these conversations are important. It is important and imperative for us to collaborate together and work together so that we can counteract all the hate within the community. 23 hate crimes in the city of Stockton is 23 too many, and hopefully we can get those numbers down. We look forward to and are committed to continuing these conversations, not only with Attorney General's office, but the collaborative as a whole. And with that, I will introduce Pastor Curtis to say a few words.
Good afternoon. First of all, I want to thank the Attorney General, Rob Bonta, and his staff. I want to thank my colleagues here in the city of Stockton for taking the time to engage in this important discussion and dialogue in making our community safe, relating specifically to hate crimes. Now, I agree that laws and policy are essential ingredients to change. However, we cannot legalize morality. We cannot arrest for lack of compassion. We cannot enforce respect, and we cannot enforce the practices of dignity. And we cannot expect a proclamation for us to say love Stockton and have it result in transformative practices of loving our neighbors. Let's be very clear. Every act of hate cannot be classified legally as a hate crime. And there are people in positions and systems in place that are operating in the spirit of hatred, causing harm to anyone who doesn't fit the description of the good old American. The prerequisite for treating any illness is establishing a proper diagnosis. Since the 2016 elections, we have experienced the viral infection of divisive and hateful rhetoric, which in turn resulted in nationwide eruption of a suppressed anti-Black and racist energy like a dormant volcano. And similar to the wildfires we experience here in California that we are so familiar with, the ashes have not stopped falling. The stench remains in the air, and we are experiencing overcast skies and the ash that covers the city with the aroma of burnt debris. Many may believe this is not a problem in Stockton, and we're doing very well actually here. However, we can't just focus on the city of Stockton without acknowledging and addressing what's happening in the county of San Joaquin, where our people are being displaced or rather pushed out of the city limits of Stockton and ending up in historically sundown cities such as Lodi. Look at Lodi, where we find in these cities the descendants of the Jim Crow and descendants of the Confederacy and Bull Connor, now emboldened, particularly in those spaces, making sure that some of us know that we don't belong there. Although there are some things that some people that don't condone these behaviors, there are still some that are choosing to be silent, ignoring what they see and hear in their own circles, camouflaged by a white supremacist witness protection program. The Attorney General is working really hard with us to make our spaces safe, But I appeal to the citizens of our own community. We must take responsibility for what's going on here. Silence is not an option. In the words of the great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Our collective leadership must embody the practices of bridging, building, and belonging, and we must learn how to bridge beyond our differences. And my holy text tells me, do not be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. Stockton, we are what we need. Let's get to work.